A delegation of alien generals arrived on Earth, their massive silver ships descending gracefully into the Nevada desert. The ships shimmered under the bright sun, reflecting light like mirrors. Around them, soldiers and scientists scrambled to prepare for what would be one of the most important events in human history. These aliens, members of the Vorin Collective, had come to observe a training exercise at a nearby military academy. Their goal was simple: to decide if humans were worthy of joining their interstellar alliance. The stakes were high. If humanity failed, they would remain isolated, vulnerable to threats from space. The aliens were tall, with sleek exoskeletons that glowed faintly in shifting colors. Their eyes were large and multifaceted, giving them an almost insect-like appearance. Despite their intimidating looks, they moved with precision and calm, observing everything around them with sharp attention. Among them was General Zinvok, the leader of the delegation. His presence commanded respect, not just because of his size, but also because of the aura of authority he carried. He stood silently as Colonel Harper, a grizzled veteran with decades of experience, gave a briefing to the cadets who would participate in the exercise. The cadets gathered in neat rows, their uniforms crisp and their expressions a mix of excitement and nervousness. They knew this wasn't just another drill. It was a chance to prove themselves to beings far more advanced than anything humanity had ever encountered. Among the cadets was Alex Carter, a young man known for his quick thinking and leadership skills. Standing beside him was Rachel Monroe, a skilled sharpshooter whose steady hands never wavered under pressure. Nearby was Jake Owens, a tech expert who could turn scrap metal into functional gadgets with ease. Each of them had trained hard for this moment, but none of them truly understood how much rested on their performance. Colonel Harper's voice cut through the air as he explained the rules of the exercise. "Your objective is simple," he said, pacing back and forth in front of the group. "You'll be divided into two teams. One team will defend a flag while the other tries to capture it. The simulation will last 3 days, and you'll face challenges designed to test your endurance, strategy, and teamwork." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But remember, these aren't just ordinary observers. The Vorin Collective is here to decide if humanity deserves a place among the stars." As the cadets listened, the aliens watched with unblinking eyes. General Zinvok leaned slightly toward one of his aides, speaking in a language that sounded like a series of clicks and hums. Though no one could understand his exact words, his tone suggested skepticism. To him, humans were fragile creatures from a primitive planet. How could they possibly stand alongside species that had mastered faster-than-light travel and harnessed the power of entire stars? Despite the aliens' doubts, the cadets felt a surge of determination. For years, humanity had dreamed of reaching the stars, of proving that they weren't alone in the universe. Now that dream was within reach, if only they could succeed where others might fail. As they prepared to enter the simulation dome, Alex turned to his teammates. "This isn't just about us," he said quietly. "It's about showing them what we're capable of." Rachel nodded, her grip tightening on her weapon. "Then let's make sure we don't disappoint." With that, the cadets stepped forward, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Behind them, the aliens continued to watch, their glowing forms casting long shadows in the desert sun. None of them knew it yet, but the next few hours would change everything. For the cadets, for humanity, and perhaps even for the galaxy itself. The simulation dome loomed ahead, a massive structure that stretched as far as the eye could see. Its curved walls were made of reinforced glass and steel, designed to replicate the harshest environments imaginable. Inside, rocky terrain covered one section, while dense forests filled another. A wide river cut through the middle, dividing the area into two halves. The cadets stared at it with a mix of awe and determination. This was their battlefield, and they had 72 hours, or so they thought, to prove themselves. Colonel Harper gave the final instructions before the exercise began. "Remember, this isn't just about winning," he said firmly. "It's about showing adaptability, teamwork, and strategy. The aliens are watching every move you make." He glanced toward the observation deck, where General Zinvok and his aides stood silently, their glowing forms visible even from a distance. "Don't let them down." Alex Carter gathered his team around him. They huddled close, sketching a rough map in the dirt with a stick. "Here's the plan," Alex said, pointing to different parts of the makeshift diagram. "We'll split into two groups. One will create distractions using Jake's gadgets, while the other sneaks behind enemy lines to scout their position. If we can confuse them early, we'll have the upper hand." Rachel Monroe nodded, her sharp eyes scanning the map. "I'll take point on scouting," she volunteered. "I can move quietly and tag their sentries without being seen." Her confidence earned approving murmurs from the others. Jake Owens chimed in next. "I've already modified some drones to mimic wildlife sounds. It should throw them off for a while." Meanwhile, on the opposing side, Eric Blake and his team prepared their defenses. Eric was a strong leader, but his approach was more straightforward. Fortify the base and overwhelm the enemy with sheer numbers. His teammates worked quickly, setting up barriers and positioning themselves strategically around their flag. They were confident in their strength and firepower, certain that no one could breach their perimeter. As the exercise began, Alex's team sprang into action. Jake activated his hack drones, sending them buzzing across the battlefield. The machines emitted eerie animal-like noises, drawing Eric's scouts away from their posts. Confused by the strange sounds, Eric's team scrambled to investigate, leaving gaps in their defenses. It was exactly what Alex had hoped for. Rachel moved like a shadow, slipping through the trees and avoiding detection. She tagged several of Eric's scouts with tracking markers, disabling their communication devices temporarily. Within an hour, Alex's team had already infiltrated deep into enemy territory without firing a single shot. Their movements were precise and calculated, a testament to weeks of rigorous training. General Zinvok watched closely from the observation deck, his mandibles twitching in irritation. "This is too easy," he muttered to his aide. "Humans are supposed to be aggressive and predictable, not cunning." His words carried a hint of disbelief. He had expected chaos and brute force, not this level of coordination and stealth. By mid-morning, Alex's team had mapped out Eric's entire defensive layout. They knew where the guards were stationed, where the traps were hidden, and most importantly, where the enemy flag was located. With this information, Alex called his team together for a quick meeting. "We've got the advantage," he said, his voice low but firm. "Now we strike hard and fast. Let's end this before they know what hit them." His words ignited a spark of determination among his teammates. Emily Dawson, the medic, double-checked her supplies, ensuring she was ready for any injuries. Chris Lane, the demolitions expert, grinned as he adjusted the straps on his backpack, packed with tools for sabotage. Everyone knew their role, and everyone was ready. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the stage was set for the next phase of the battle. Alex's team prepared to execute their daring plan, unaware that their actions would soon leave the alien general speechless. For now, though, they focused on one thing: victory. By early afternoon, Alex's team was deep in enemy territory, moving with purpose and precision. They had already disrupted Eric's defenses, thanks to Jake's drones and Rachel's stealthy scouting. The distractions had worked perfectly, drawing Eric's forces away from their base and leaving their rearguard exposed. Now it was time for the next phase of their plan. Alex signaled for his team to stop behind a cluster of rocks near the river. From this vantage point, they could see part of Eric's base, a makeshift fort surrounded by barriers and guarded by a handful of sentries. "Okay," Alex whispered, crouching low. "Rachel, you're up. Circle around and tag those guards quietly. We'll cover you." Rachel nodded, her sharpshooter instincts kicking in. She slung her weapon over her shoulder and crept forward, staying low and using the terrain to her advantage. Her movements were so smooth that even the nearby wildlife didn't seem to notice her. One by one, She tagged the sentries with tracking markers, disabling their communication devices and rendering them temporarily useless. Within minutes, the guards were confused and isolated, unable to call for backup or warn the others. Back at the rocks, Jake monitored the situation through a small handheld screen connected to the hack drones. "They're down," he reported, his voice barely audible. "But we've got incoming. Looks like Eric's sending reinforcements." Alex frowned but quickly adapted. "Change of plans," he said. "Jake, send the drones to intercept them. Make some noise. Keep them busy. Chris, set up a few traps along their path. We need to buy Rachel more time." Chris grinned, pulling out a bundle of wires and small explosives from his pack. "Leave it to me," he said, already jogging off to prepare the traps. Meanwhile, Jake activated the drones again, programming them to emit louder and more chaotic sounds. The reinforcements stumbled into the confusion, wasting precious minutes as they tried to figure out what was happening. While all this was going on, Rachel reached the edge of Eric's base. She spotted the enemy flag, a bright orange marker placed conspicuously in the center of the fort. It was heavily guarded, but thanks to her earlier efforts, most of the guards were either distracted or disabled. With careful aim, she fired a non-lethal round at one of the remaining sentries, knocking him out instantly. Then she darted forward, grabbed the flag, and slipped back into the shadows before anyone noticed. General Zenvok leaned forward in his seat on the observation deck, his glowing eyes fixed on the monitors. What he saw defied his expectations. These humans weren't just fighting. They were outsmarting their opponents at every turn. "This is impossible," he muttered, turning to his aide. "They've only been at it for a few hours, and already they've breached the enemy's defenses." His aide clicked softly in agreement, clearly impressed. "Their tactics are unconventional and efficient." As Rachel made her way back to the rendezvous point, Alex's team regrouped. When she arrived, breathless but triumphant, she held up the captured flag. "Mission accomplished," she said with a satisfied smile. Alex allowed himself a brief moment of relief. "Good work, everyone. But don't celebrate yet. We still have to hold our own base and survive until the clock runs out." The team nodded, refocusing on the task ahead. They knew Eric's team wouldn't give up easily, and the real challenge was just beginning. Still, their success so far gave them confidence. For now, they pressed on, ready to face whatever came next. Unbeknownst to them, the alien generals were growing increasingly intrigued, and perhaps even concerned. Humanity's unpredictability was proving to be a force unlike anything they had encountered before. With the enemy flag in hand, Alex's team began their retreat, moving quickly but cautiously through the dense forest. The sun was beginning to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the battlefield. Though they had accomplished a major victory by capturing Eric's flag, they knew the exercise wasn't over yet. They still had to defend their own base and ensure the flag stayed in their possession until the end of the simulation. As they navigated the rocky terrain near the river, Jake kept an eye on his drone feed. "We've got company," he warned, pointing to a cluster of red dots moving rapidly toward their position. "Eric's forces are regrouping. Looks like they're coming for us." Alex cursed under his breath, but didn't panic. "All right, let's split up," he said, thinking fast. "Rachel, you and Emily take the flag and head for the base. Stay hidden and avoid direct contact. The rest of us will hold them off here." Rachel hesitated, clutching the flag tightly. "Are you sure?" she asked. "If we lose the flag now, it's game over." "I'm sure," Alex replied firmly. "You're faster than us, and Emily can patch you up if anything goes wrong. Trust me, we'll buy you enough time." Without another word, Rachel nodded and motioned for Emily to follow her. The two women disappeared into the trees, moving as quietly as possible. Meanwhile, Alex, Jake, Chris, and the others prepared to face Eric's approaching forces. The ambush came swiftly. Eric's team, fueled by frustration and determination, charged forward with a barrage of paint rounds. Alex's group returned fire, using the rocky landscape for cover. Jake deployed more drones to create distractions, sending bursts of noise and movement in different directions. It worked. Eric's team split their focus, unsure where the real threat was coming from. Chris took advantage of the chaos, setting up traps along the path Eric's forces were likely to take. He rigged a few tripwires with small explosives that would release harmless smoke bombs when triggered. As the enemy advanced, several of them stumbled into the traps, causing confusion and slowing their progress. Despite their efforts, Alex's team was outnumbered. Paint rounds splattered against the rocks, narrowly missing their targets. One by one, members of Alex's group were tagged and eliminated from the exercise. But each hit bought Rachel and Emily precious time to reach safety. General Zinvok watched the unfolding battle with growing fascination. His earlier skepticism had turned into something resembling respect. These humans were fighting with everything they had, even when the odds were stacked against them. "They're sacrificing themselves for the mission," he observed, clicking softly to his aide. "This level of selflessness, it's unexpected." Back at Alex's base, Rachel and Emily finally arrived, breathless but unharmed. They secured the captured flag in its designated spot and prepared to defend it. Moments later, Eric's team launched a desperate counterattack, storming the area with overwhelming numbers. Rachel and Emily held their ground, firing steadily and taking out several attackers before reinforcements from Alex's remaining teammates joined the fray. The final minutes of the exercise were intense. Both sides exchanged volleys of paint rounds, grappling in close quarters and scrambling for control. In the end, it was Alex himself who delivered the decisive blow, tagging Eric just as the clock ticked down to 0. When the simulation ended, silence fell over the dome. The cadets stood panting, covered in paint but victorious. Unbeknownst to them, the alien generals were already discussing what they had witnessed and humanity's place in the galaxy. The simulation ended with a loud announcement over the speakers. Exercise complete. Time elapsed, 15 minutes. The words echoed through the dome, leaving everyone stunned, including the cadets themselves. Alex and his teammates froze for a moment, their paint-splattered uniforms sticking to their skin as they caught their breath. They had done it. Against all odds, they had captured the enemy flag and defended their own base in less than 20 minutes, a task meant to take 3 full days. Rachel looked at Alex, her face breaking into a wide grin despite her exhaustion. "Did we just win?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex nodded slowly, still processing what had happened. "Yeah," he said, his tone filled with disbelief. "We actually did." The other members of the team gathered around, their tired faces lighting up with pride. Emily leaned on her knees, trying to steady her breathing, while Jake fiddled with his drone controller, unable to stop smiling. Even Chris, who usually kept a cool demeanor, let out a laugh that echoed through the quiet dome. For a few moments, no one spoke. They simply stood there, taking in the enormity of what they'd accomplished. Up in the observation deck, the alien generals were equally silent. General Zinvok stared at the monitors, his glowing eyes reflecting the final images of the battle. He turned to his aides, clicking softly in his native language before speaking in halting English. This was not supposed to happen," he said, his voice tinged with both frustration and admiration. They completed the exercise in 15 minutes. 15. His aides exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. One of them finally spoke up. Their tactics were unconventional, but effective. They adapted faster than any species we encountered. Zinvok nodded slowly, his mandibles twitching as he processed the information. "Unpredictable," he muttered. "Humans are unpredictable." Down on the battlefield, Colonel Harper approached the cadets, his expression unreadable. The cadets straightened instinctively, snapping to attention even though they were covered in dirt and sweat. Harper stopped in front of Alex and studied him for a long moment before speaking. "You exceeded expectations," he said gruffly, though there was a hint of pride in his voice. "I don't know how you pulled it off, but you made history today." Alex swallowed hard, unsure what to say. "Thank you, sir," he managed, glancing at his teammates. "It wasn't just me. We all did it together." Harper nodded, then gestured toward the observation deck. "The Vorin Collective is waiting to speak with you. Don't screw this up." The cadets followed Harper to the briefing room, where General Zinvok and his delegation awaited them. The aliens stood taller than ever, their exoskeletons shimmering faintly under the fluorescent lights. Zinvok stepped forward, his presence commanding silence. "Cadets," he began, his deep voice resonating through the room. "Your performance today has changed our perception of your species. You demonstrated creativity, teamwork, and resilience, qualities essential for survival in the galaxy." He paused, studying each of their faces carefully. "We came here skeptical of humanity's worthiness to join the coalition. But now," his glowing eyes softened slightly, "now we see potential. Potential to become more than survivors, to become protectors." The cadets exchanged glances, unsure how to react. Rachel finally spoke up, her voice steady despite her nerves. "Thank you, General. We're honored to represent humanity." Zinvok nodded approvingly. "You have earned that honor. Prepare yourselves, cadets. If you choose to join us, greater challenges lie ahead. But know this, you have proven yourselves capable of facing them." As the meeting concluded, the cadets filed out of the room, their minds racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. They had started the day as ordinary trainees, but now they carried the weight of an entire species on their shoulders. Though exhausted, they couldn't help but feel a spark of hope and excitement for the future. Back at the barracks, the cadets gathered in their shared quarters, the adrenaline of the day slowly fading into a mix of pride and disbelief. The room was quiet except for the occasional clink of metal as someone cleaned their gear or the soft rustle of fabric as they moved around. Alex sat on the edge of his bunk, staring at the floor while replaying the events of the day in his mind. He still couldn't believe what they had achieved, or how quickly it had all happened. Rachel leaned against the wall, her arms crossed as she watched her teammates. "I don't think it's sunk in yet," she said finally, breaking the silence. "We just beat an exercise designed to last 3 days. In 15 minutes. Jake looked up from tinkering with one of his drones, his face lighting up with a grin. "Yeah, and we did it without losing anyone permanently," he added. "Well, until the end when Chris got tagged by that ambush." Chris groaned from across the room, tossing a crumpled towel at Jake. "Don't remind me," he said, though there was no real anger in his voice. "At least I set those traps before going down. That smoke bomb chaos was worth it." Emily laughed softly, sitting cross-legged on her bunk as she sorted through her medical kit. "You guys realize this isn't just about us, right?" she said, her tone thoughtful. "This is about showing the aliens, and the rest of the galaxy, that humans aren't pushovers. We're smart, adaptable, and tough." Alex nodded slowly, lifting his head to look at his teammates. "Exactly," he said. "But it's not just about proving ourselves. It's about stepping up. If we join the coalition, we'll be fighting alongside species way more advanced than us. That means bigger threats, tougher missions, and no room for mistakes." The others fell silent, considering his words. They had trained hard for years, but none of them had truly imagined being thrust onto the galactic stage so soon. The weight of responsibility pressed down on them, but instead of fear, they felt determination. Humanity wasn't ready to face the universe alone, and now they had been given a chance to change that. Later that evening, Colonel Harper entered the barracks, his usual stern expression softened slightly. "Good work today," he said, addressing the group. "You didn't just pass the test, you crushed it. The Vorin Collective is impressed, and they've extended an official invitation for humanity to join their alliance." The cadets exchanged glances, their hearts swelling with pride. Harper continued, his voice firm but kind. But remember, this isn't the end. It's only the beginning. You've opened a door for humanity, but it's up to all of us to walk through it and prove we belong here." As Harper left the room, the cadets sat in reflective silence. Outside, the sun had set, casting the desert sky in shades of deep blue and purple. Stars began to twinkle faintly, distant pinpricks of light that seemed closer than ever before. Alex walked over to the window, gazing up at the night sky. He thought about everything that had happened, the challenges they'd faced, the risks they'd taken, and the victory they'd earned. For the first time, the vastness of space didn't feel intimidating. Instead, it felt like an opportunity, an invitation to explore, to grow, and to protect. Rachel joined him at the window, following his gaze. "Do you think we're ready for this?" she asked quietly. Alex hesitated, then smiled. "No," he admitted, "but we will be. We have to be." She nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Then let's get to work." Behind them, the rest of the team began talking excitedly about what might come next. Training exercises, new technology, and the possibility of traveling beyond Earth. Though the road ahead would be difficult, they knew they weren't alone. Together, they had proven that humanity could rise to any challenge. And somewhere out there, among the stars, the galaxy was watching. The days following the exercise were a blur of activity for Alex and his teammates. News of their incredible performance spread quickly, not just within the military academy, but across the world. Reporters swarmed the base, eager to interview the cadets who had caught the attention of an alien delegation. Governments held emergency meetings to discuss humanity's newfound place in the galaxy, and the cadets themselves. They trained harder than ever before, knowing that the real challenges lay ahead. General Zinvok and his aides stayed on Earth for several more days, observing further exercises and meeting with key leaders. During one of these meetings, Zinvok addressed a group of high-ranking officers, including Colonel Harper. "Your species has proven itself capable," he said, his voice calm but firm. "But joining the coalition is not without risks. There are enemies out there, powerful ones, who will see your presence as either an opportunity or a threat." Harper nodded, his expression serious. "We understand the stakes, General. Humanity is ready to take its place among the stars, whatever it takes." Zinvok studied him for a moment, then turned to the cadets standing nearby. "You have shown us what humans are capable of," he said, his glowing eyes scanning their faces. "But remember this, strength alone is not enough. You must also learn humility, patience, and trust. These are the qualities that bind allies together." The cadets listened intently, absorbing every word. For Alex, Rachel, Jake, Emily, and Chris, this was more than just advice. It was a roadmap for what came next. They knew they couldn't rely solely on quick thinking or clever tactics forever. To truly succeed in the coalition, they would need to grow, not just as soldiers, but as people. As the aliens prepared to leave Earth, they held a final ceremony at the Nevada desert site where their ships had landed. The cadets stood in formation alongside Colonel Harper and other military leaders, watching as Zinvok approached them one last time. "This is only the beginning," he said, extending a claw-like hand toward Alex in a gesture of respect. "We will return soon to begin integrating your forces into the coalition. Until then, prepare yourselves." With that, the aliens boarded their sleek ships, which hummed to life, and ascended into the sky. Within moments, they disappeared into the clouds, leaving behind a mix of awe and determination among those who remained. Back at the academy, life slowly returned to normal, or as normal as it could be after such an extraordinary event. The cadets threw themselves into their training, learning new skills and adapting to the advanced technology provided by the Vorin Collective. Alex spent hours studying star charts and tactical manuals, while Rachel honed her marksmanship with alien-inspired weapons. Jake tinkered endlessly with prototypes sent from the coalition, determined to master their intricacies. Emily practiced field medicine using cutting-edge tools, and Chris experimented with explosives designed for environments far harsher than Earth's. Despite the intensity of their preparation, the cadets found moments of peace. On clear nights, they gathered outside the barracks, lying on the cool ground and staring up at the stars. Each of them felt a strange connection to the vastness above, a sense that they were no longer looking at distant lights but at future destinations. Alex broke the silence during one of these quiet evenings. "Do you think we'll ever get used to it?" he asked softly. "Being part of something so big." Rachel smiled faintly, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "Maybe not," she admitted, "but I think that's okay. It keeps us humble, keeps us hungry." Chris chuckled, tossing a pebble into the darkness. "Hungry for what?" "Space food." Everyone laughed, the tension easing slightly. Even in the face of uncertainty, their camaraderie remained unshaken. They weren't just teammates, they were family, bound by shared experiences and a shared purpose. As the weeks passed, humanity began taking its first steps toward the stars. New alliances formed, technologies advanced, and dreams once thought impossible became reality. Through it all, Alex and his team stood at the forefront, ready to face whatever lay ahead. And somewhere out there, among the countless galaxies, the universe waited, watching, testing, and welcoming.